We are continuing on day 2 of locating points and midpoints. I'm not going to describe the midpoint formula too much here because we've already talked about it in the previous video, but it should look something like this. x1 plus x2 over 2, and then comma, that's a y, sorry, y1 plus y2 over 2, and it kind of has an m in front just showing that that's the midpoint. So the midpoint is made up of basically the average of your x's. That's how I describe it. I say it's the average of your x's and then the average of your y values to get your y value. But we will discuss it as we go through these problems. First of all, find the coordinates of the midpoint of a segment with the given endpoints. So these are your endpoints, and we're just finding the average. Now I tell my students you don't have to write out the midpoint formula every time if you don't want to. We are just trying to find the average of our x values and the average of our y values. So what is the average of 5 and negative 4? Well, if I add them together, that gives me 1. If I divide that by 2, that's 0.5. So I really don't even need to show work on this because most of these problems you will be able to do in your head. But I will say 0.5 for my x value because that's the average of those. And then the other ones, the y values, well, 12 plus 8 is 20. If I divide 20 by 2, I get 10. That's my midpoint. That's it. All I did was I added them up and divided them by 2. Moving on. So now it says find the coordinates of J if K is a midpoint. So I'm actually going to draw this out because it's going to be really tough to see if I don't draw it out. And a lot of people get this confused because they just completely skip the directions and go right to the points and try to find the average of the points. But you'll see that you do it wrong if you do that. K is the midpoint, and the line is JL. So something like that. I know that's not exactly in the middle, but it says K is negative 1, 2, and L is 3, negative 5. Okay, so I'm going to go through it how we are told to go through it in the book, and then I'm going to show you my way as well. So it says that we need to take the average of our endpoints to find the midpoint. So on this one, we don't have our endpoints, so I'm going to put x comma y there instead. Now if I take the average of my endpoints, it's going to look like this. So for my x value, this is my x value. I'm going to say, well, x plus 3 divided by 2 is the average of my endpoints, right? I'm getting that from right here. The x and the 3 are my endpoints. If I divide that by 2, that gives me my average, and that should end up equaling this negative 1. For my y value, I'm using this y and this negative 5 to get that 2. So it's going to be y plus a negative 5 divided by 2 equals that 2 from the midpoint. Then it's just a matter of solving. If you remember how to solve here, we have to multiply both sides by 2 first. So those 2's will cancel, and we'll get x plus 3 equals negative 2 minus 3 minus 3, x equals negative 5. So it's just algebra solving there. If you have questions with that, you're going to have to ask in person. So that's our x value, negative 5, which means that would go right there. My y value, again, we got to multiply both sides by 2. These 2's cancel. We're left with the y, and then I'm just going to make it a minus 5 because plus negative 5 is the same thing. 4 plus 5 plus 5, y value will equal 9. So the 9 would go for that one. So basically what I'm saying here, in a nutshell, is that our point, this xy coordinate, our endpoint, was -5, comma 9. Okay, that was our final answer for this. Now, did we need to go through all that work though? Because now I'm going to tell you how I prefer to do this problem instead. It's a lot easier than what you think. If I just look at what I've got here, if I've drawn my picture, like at the beginning, and I see this, let me change colors here. This 3 and this -1, how far are they apart? How far apart is -1 from 3? The answer to that is 4. So you should think that this value would also be 4 away from that -1. Well, guess what? It is. So I could have instead just said, okay, well, the difference between 3 and -1 is 4. So this one will also have to have a difference of -4. Or sorry, subtract 4. And it did. Same thing with the y values. What color should I do? The y values. -5 and 2, that's a difference of 7. Well, 2 and 9 is also a difference of 7. So I'm going to go through the next one that way, and you can use this if you'd like. There's a lot less work here, though. I still want you to draw it out. So let's just do P is the midpoint of E and G. Okay, E was -8, 6, and P is -5, 10. Okay, so how far apart is -8 and -5? Well, to get to -5, you'd have to add 3, right? If I add 3 more, that means I'm at -2. How about my y values? 6 to 10, you're adding 4. If I add 4 more, that's 14. We're done. I know that that point is going to be 2, 14. All right, let's go on to the next ones. These are a little bit different. Now it's asking us to find the length of PQ. This segment right there. The only thing I know is that Q is the midpoint. Well, if I know Q is the midpoint, then I know that this and this are congruent or equal, however you want to say it. So if they're equal, then this one has to be equal to this. And then it's just a matter of doing algebra. 9y minus 2 has to be equal to 14 plus 5y. Solving this, I'm going to skip some steps here, but you should get 4y equals 16. Y must equal 4. It's asking us, again, I got to look at the question. It says find the measure of PQ. It's not asking us what y equals. It's asking us for what PQ is, which is this guy right there. So now I have to take that 4 and plug it in for y. Well, 9 times 4 is 36. 36 minus 2 is 34. So PQ equals 34. And I didn't put a segment on top of my PQ because I have an equal sign. Okay, last one. Find the value of x if C is the midpoint of AB. So C is the midpoint of AB. Let's draw this out. So A, B, C is the midpoint. Midpoint means that these are all, or those sides are congruent. AC, we said, was 4x. Oh, yeah, 4x plus 5. And AB, which is the whole thing, by the way, is 78. So if the whole thing is 78, I've got to notice this. I've got to see that, well, if those are congruent, then this also has to be 4x plus 5, right? Those are congruent. They're the same thing. So if they're both 4x plus 5 and I add them together, I will get 8x plus 10. And I added them together to make the entire line, so that would be 78 that it's equal to. This right here is equal to these two added together. Okay? So minus 8, not 18, minus 10. Minus 10. 8x equals 68. That's a decimal. Well, let's see. Okay, so 64 would be 8. So that means x must equal 8.5. Is that what it's asking us, though? It says find the value of x. Yep, that is what it's asking. We're done.